Cool, thank you. I wanted to think a little bit about kind of post-Easter, really, and the fact that it's so easy to come back after an Easter break or after the Easter weekend and just move on and just, go back to the normality of life. I know here, we came straight back in and we were clearing up rubble and sweeping and brushing and cleaning, and all of a sudden Easter's gone. But actually that isn't the case in the Bible, is it? It's not the case in the story. They don't simply move on. Yes, Good Friday happened. They were all devastated. Many didn't really understand what on earth had happened. Easter Sunday happens and they're all excited, but still they don't really understand what happens. Even though Jesus has explained it to them and prepared them, they still don't really understand what happens. And as humans, I think we have a real gift for making assumptions about people, about situations. What's going to happen next? I know I can be like that. The car park was supposed to take a week, but we closed the mission for 3 weeks because I'd made the assumption it was all going to go wrong. I mean, in fairness, it was about 2 weeks in the end, but I think so many of us can make an assumption of what's going to happen next. And many times we're wrong. Many times we make that assumption based on experience, based on maybe being a little bit pessimistic, but actually many times we're wrong. I just wanted to watch a clip in a minute. The guilty pleasure we have at home is usually watching trash TV. TV is not going to help your brain cells particularly, but it helps you just relax. And one of the things Remy, my 12-year-old, has been saying for weeks and weeks and weeks into months is, when's Britain's Got Talent coming back on? And when we saw the first advert saying it's coming soon, that was it. We knew our Saturday nights were taken because we were all going to have to sit and watch Britain's Got Talent with Remy. And I just want to show a clip. If you watch Britain's Got Talent, you may have seen this clip and you know what it's about. But if not, I just want to show you a clip. This shows a young guy coming out on stage and being interviewed by the panelists, and then he's going to perform. But I just want you to watch. I'm going to stop halfway, and I want to know, if you haven't seen it, what your perception of what happens is. But I thought it was fascinating. Did you see Simon's face change throughout it? Yeah, you should apologise. But I think you can almost see the pound sign in his eyes by the time the guy started to sing. He's like, we're going to make a fortune on this guy. But what a transformation, both in, he seemed more confident once he started singing, but also a transformation in probably about 4,000 people in the audience who had all made an assumption pretty much of what's going to happen next. But actually, like Paul Potts, like Susan Boyle, Simon made an assumption, the audience made an assumption, but actually who knew what was coming next? The next time he sings, when he gets through to the next round, it's not going to be a surprise. We're going to expect something, and maybe it won't have the same effect to us, but actually that idea of something special happening just sometimes blows our mind. And I just want to remind you that on that Good Friday, can you imagine, on Easter Saturday, can you imagine how the disciples felt, how that group, how Jesus' family felt, how those women that surrounded him, or how they all felt? He died on the cross. Did they think it was all a con? Did they think he was mad? Did they think it was real? How do we carry on now? He's dead. They must have been broken. They must have been confused. They must have made so many assumptions about Jesus that they would continue to follow him, and now he's gone. And it's, what next? How do we carry on? And I just wonder how they felt on those nights before Easter Sunday morning, and then in the hours beyond that. How on earth they kept going? How on earth they understood what was going on? And we know we have a loving Jesus, a Jesus who knows we're all a bit stupid sometimes and don't always listen to him and don't really fully understand what he's telling us. And so we see that it wasn't over. Yes, he uttered the words that he's finished, and we know he beat death on the cross, but we also know he came back to visit those he loved, those he wanted to get that message back to, the message across to, that isn't over. This is much more than just Good Friday, and this is the thing that happened on Easter Sunday when my body disappeared. And actually, I think that's why we're still talking about it. We're still celebrating it 2,000 plus years later. We know that Jesus made himself seen by people 13 different times, we believe. Discussion over whether it's 12 or 13 different times in that period, post Easter Sunday, post the resurrection. Sometimes just one person. We see the first person, maybe Mary Magdalene. We see that obviously she's probably one of the ones that most grateful for everything he did in her life. And then early Sunday morning, she and two other women came to the tomb where he was lying, put spices on his body to prepare his body for burial. And then we go in, and of course the tomb's empty, and Mary and the others ran up to tell the disciples. And then we see that Peter and John heard the news. They ran to the tomb to see for themselves. Yes, the body's gone. They were confused again. They've made assumptions. They're wondering what has happened, rather than remembering what Jesus had told them. And so they went home. And then meanwhile, Mary stood outside the tomb crying. Two white-robed men asked her what's wrong. Someone has taken my Lord away, and I don't know where he is. But then she glanced over her shoulder and saw someone she thought was the gardener. Why are you crying? He asked her. Who are you looking for? Sir, Mary said, do you know where Jesus is? Have they taken him away? Mary, Jesus said. Mary then recognized him. She ran and told the other disciples the good news that he was alive. Probably one of his closest friends. And he just wanted to remind her that this is not over. It appears to the other two women who were with Mary Magdalene. We kind of wonder how they got split up when they were going back, but two women going to tell the disciples that the body of Jesus was missing. Jesus suddenly appeared to them and greeted them, but they knew him right away. It was a different relationship than that with Mary. He wanted Mary to have kind of time to kind of soak in what was going on. The two women immediately, they recognized him. And they ran to him, they held his feet and they worshipped him. And it goes on, doesn't it? We know that he appeared to Peter. We know that he appeared to the two men on the road to Emmaus. And so on and so on. He appears to so many different people in different ways, almost to reassure them in different ways. We know that he appeared to the apostles, except for Thomas. You know, when the two men from Emmaus arrived in Jerusalem where the apostles were staying, it was Sunday evening. And they probably started to tell their story. As soon as they were getting into the story, Jesus appears to them and says, peace be with you. And what's their response? The human response. They were terrified. Rather than recalling what Jesus had told them was that this was not the end, they were terrified, thought he was a ghost. But then he says, look at my hands, look at my feet, look at my side, touch me. And then he asked them to give him something to eat. He ate a piece of fish in front of them to prove that he was there. They then tell Thomas, what does Thomas do? Don't believe you. How many of us would do that in situations where we've made assumptions and something is different to what we assume? We go, I don't believe it unless I see it myself. But we have a loving God, a benevolent Jesus who says, okay, Thomas, if that's what you need, that's absolutely fine. And comes back, doesn't he, to Thomas. Put your hand there. Put your fist there. Because he loves them enough to say, this is not it. This is not finished. There's more to do. And of course it goes on and on. There's lots more situations where Jesus appears to people. He appears to 7 of the disciples on the shores of the Sea of Galilee. He appears to the apostles on the mountain in Galilee. And on and on. He ate a meal with them. We know they saw him at the Ascension. He appeared to Paul. And it was all about saying, this is not over. There is more to come. And I think so many of us can get to Easter, enjoy Easter, and then move on. And forget that there's still more to come. And I just wanted to encourage you this morning to hold on to that, not to go back into the normality or the abnormality of life at the moment. Whether we're still worried about COVID, whether we're worried about Ukraine-Russia conflict, whether we're worried about the cost of living, whether we're worried about all of these things, Jesus is still here. Jesus is still in control. But actually, it's easy for us to almost cast that to one side and continue with everyday life. But I just want to promise you that Jesus still reaches out to us today. We may not physically see him in the way that those people saw him in that period between the resurrection and the ascension. But if we actually take the time to listen, if we take the time to look, if we take the time to just read the Bible and pray and just spend time in his presence, then we're promised he will be there. And so I just wanted to encourage you today to not rush off from Easter. I think, at Christmas, we all rush, don't we, to put the decorations away and to get back to, we can do a bit of dusting and get back to normal. And I think we can do the same at Easter. It's another one of those Christian holidays when we can just go, tick, we've done that. And the shops do it, don't they? Good Friday, all the Easter eggs are gone and they start putting the summer stuff in the shop. And as Christians, we can move on as quickly. But I want to encourage you just over the coming days. I know we're over a week away now from Easter, more than that. But I just wanted to encourage you to not rush off, to actually live in that moment of what the disciples, what Mary Magdalene, what the other women and other people that saw Jesus in that period must have been slowly absorbing in that Jesus had beaten death. He'd broken that barrier between us and God because he put that sin away. And actually, if we just spend a bit of time thinking about that, praying about that, it actually might lift us, bring a bit of light in what in at the moment is a very dark world.